At Downton Abbey, life inside the grand estate always seemed elegant and timeless. But behind the curtains of that beloved world, not every story had a happy ending. Some of the most shocking twists weren't written by the show's creator at all. They came from the actors themselves. Fans watched in disbelief as beloved characters were suddenly killed off, written out, or quietly disappeared. What really happened? Why did these stars walk away from one of the most successful period dramas in television history? And how did those decisions change their careers forever? Stay with us because each story is filled with surprising choices, dramatic exits, and bold leaps into the unknown. Let's begin with one of the most heartbreaking departures in the entire series. Dan Stevens, Matthew Crawley. When Downton Abbey first premiered, Dan Stevens quickly became the beating heart of the story. As Matthew Crawley, the kind and principled heir to the estate, he captivated viewers everywhere. His romance with Lady Mary Crawley was the very definition of television magic. Their wedding, their tender moments, and finally the birth of their son George seemed to set the stage for a long and happy future. And then came one of the most devastating scenes in the show's history. Just moments after meeting his newborn child, Matthew was killed in a car crash. It was a shocking Christmas episode that left fans in tears and disbelief. But while viewers mourned, Stevens himself was already looking ahead. His contract had ended, and he wanted to break free from the period drama world before it defined his entire career. He explained in an interview that it wasn't an easy choice, but it was necessary. He longed for freedom, for opportunities that would challenge him in new ways. That decision took him across the Atlantic. Moving from the UK to the United States, Stevens threw himself into roles that could not have been more different from Matthew Crawley. From a haunted war veteran in The Guest to a schizophrenic mutant in Legion, he showed audiences that he was far more than just a romantic lead. By 2024, Stevens openly reflected that the move was one of the best choices he ever made. He said there was a real openness in Hollywood to let actors experiment and try things they'd never been seen in before. That freedom gave him exactly what he was searching for. Now, years later, Stevens continues to reinvent himself. Whether playing unsettling villains or stepping into blockbuster franchises like Godzilla x Kong, Supernova, he has proven that leaving Downton Abbey was not the end of his career. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. But Dan Stevens wasn't the only one whose exit caught fans off guard. Another departure came just as suddenly, and this time it left both the audience and the show's creator reeling. Jessica Brown Findlay, Lady Sybil Crawley. Lady Sybil Crawley was one of the most beloved characters in the Crawley family. Known for her warmth, compassion, and progressive spirit, she represented a brighter, more hopeful future for Downton Abbey. Fans adored her romance with Tom Branson, the chauffeur-turned-son-in-law, and her untimely death in childbirth remains one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the entire series. But unlike Dan Stevens, Jessica Brown Findlay's decision to leave wasn't a last-minute shock. She had been upfront from the very beginning. When she signed her 3-year contract, she already knew she wouldn't be staying beyond it. She explained later that she was terrified of slipping into comfort and routine. For her, leaving was about taking risks, pushing herself creatively, and refusing to play it safe. Julian Fellowes, the creator of Downton Abbey, knew about her plan. But what he didn't know was that Dan Stevens would also be leaving around the same time. Had he known, he admitted, he might have written their exits together, possibly killing Matthew and Sybil in the same tragic accident. Instead, the two departures came in separate episodes, delivering double heartbreak to fans. Findlay's leap of faith paid off. After leaving the show, she starred in projects like Winter's Tale, Victor Frankenstein, and the sci-fi adaptation of Brave New World. Each role allowed her to grow, to explore, and to avoid being typecast. Her departure may have devastated fans, but it also set her free. Just like Stevens, she refused to let Downton Abbey define the rest of her career, and yet the heartbreak didn't stop there. Even Lady Mary's future was destined to be shaken by another departure that no one saw coming. Matthew Goode, Henry Talbot, Lady Mary Crawley never had an easy love story. After Matthew's tragic death, Her path toward happiness was long and uncertain. When she finally found love again with Henry Talbot, played by Matthew Goode, it seemed like a fresh chapter was beginning. Henry was dashing, witty, and passionate about racing cars. His introduction in the Season 5 Christmas special brought new energy to the Crawley household. Henry eventually became Mary's second husband, appearing throughout Season 6 and returning for the first Downton Abbey film. But when fans looked forward to seeing more of him in later films, they were met with disappointment. By the time the grand finale rolled around, Henry was gone. The trailer even revealed that he and Mary had divorced off-screen. Why did Goode leave? It wasn't scandal. It wasn't creative disagreements. It was simply scheduling. At the time of filming, he was tied up with other major projects like The Offer and Department Q. On top of that, he injured his knee and required surgery, which made participation impossible. In his own words, Goode admitted that Henry Talbot might not have been the most exciting character by the end. He even joked that Henry was edging toward becoming a bit of a wet lettuce. Still, his absence left a noticeable gap in Mary's story. Career-wise, Matthew Goode never slowed down. Since his Downton Abbey days, he has appeared in multiple high-profile projects every year, from The Crown to Abigail, where he reunited with Dan Stevens in a fun vampire tale. Downton Abbey may have lost Henry Talbot, but Matthew Goode gained the freedom to explore an impressive range of roles that kept him in constant demand. And just when audiences thought they had adjusted to losing central family members, another fan favorite returned for a surprise cameo, only to vanish once again. Rose Leslie. Gwen Harding before she became a household name on Game of Thrones, Rose Leslie made her mark as Gwen Harding, a housemaid with big dreams. Gwen was introduced in the very first season of Downton Abbey, and right from the start, viewers could tell she was different. She wasn't content with polishing silver and serving meals forever. She wanted more from life, and she wasn't afraid to reach for it. Her story came full circle quickly. After landing a position as a secretary, Gwen left the Abbey, making her one of the first major characters to depart. Years later, she returned for a single episode in Season 6, this time as the accomplished Mrs. Harding, happily married and successful. For fans, it was a sweet reunion. But for Leslie, the exit wasn't her choice exactly. The writers felt Gwen's story had naturally reached its end, and in truth, it was the perfect launch pad for her career. Shortly after Downton, Leslie auditioned for a role in Game of Thrones. David Benioff, one of the show's creators, had seen her performance in Downton and was struck by her sharp delivery and natural charisma. That audition landed her the role of Ygritte, the fiery wildling who stole Jon Snow's heart. The line, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," would forever cement her place in television history. Her time on Game of Thrones didn't just change her career, it changed her life. Leslie later married her co-star Kit Harington in 2018. Since then, she has gone on to star in series like The Time Traveler's Wife and Vigil, with even more exciting projects on the horizon. Including the miniseries The Hack, Gwen Harding's story may have ended quietly. But Rose Leslie's journey was only just beginning, and it was about to get even more interesting for another actor whose character left under much messier circumstances. Ed Speleers, Jimmy Kent. When Jimmy Kent first appeared in Season 3, he immediately stirred the pot. Charming, flirtatious, and always ready to bend the rules, Jimmy was the kind of character who kept both the staff and the audience on their toes. His storyline became particularly complicated when he became the object of Thomas Barrow's affection, a subplot that caused tension and scandal below stairs. But Jimmy's time at Downton came to an abrupt end. After being caught in a compromising situation with his former employer, Lady Anstruther, he was dismissed from the Abbey. It was a dramatic exit, but it also felt final. When the first Downton Abbey movie was announced, many fans wondered if Jimmy would return for a cameo. Ed Speleers later confirmed that he never got the call. By then, he was already busy with other projects, including a stage production of Rain Man. Looking back, he admitted that Jimmy's story was done. His words were simple. "My journey was complete." And he was right. Speleers didn't need Downton Abbey to keep his career alive. Since leaving, he has taken on roles in critically acclaimed series like Outlander, You, and Star Trek Picard. Each role allowed him to show a different side of his talent, proving he could do far more than play a cheeky footman. Jimmy Kent's exit may have been messy, but for Ed Speleers, it opened the door to bigger opportunities that have kept him busy ever since. And then came a departure that stunned everyone, not because of the character's fate, but because of the actor's decision to walk away from a role that was central to the heart of the show. Siobhan Finneran, Sarah. O'Brien's few characters in Downton Abbey stirred up as much trouble as Sarah O'Brien. As Lady Cora's maid, she was conniving, manipulative, and often at the center of the household's darkest moments. From scheming against her fellow staff to the shocking storyline where she indirectly caused Lady Cora's miscarriage, O'Brien's presence was unforgettable. So when she suddenly disappeared before season 4, fans were left stunned. Where did O'Brien go, and why? The truth was surprisingly simple. Siobhan Finneran, the actress behind O'Brien, had only ever signed a 3-year contract. By the end of that term, she had fallen out of love with the role. She later explained that while she had fun playing O'Brien, she no longer wanted to continue. Once she stopped enjoying it, she decided it was time to move on. Gareth Neame, one of the show's executive producers, confirmed that the choice was entirely hers. There was no behind-the-scenes drama, no fallout, just an actress ready for a new chapter. Since leaving Downton, Finneran has thrived on television. She has appeared in series like The Lock and The Stranger, but perhaps her most acclaimed role came in Happy Valley, where she played Claire Cartwright. The series became a critical success, further cementing her reputation as one of Britain's most versatile actresses. Sarah O'Brien may have vanished without a proper farewell, but Finneran didn't need a grand exit. Her career spoke louder than any plotline ever could. With O'Brien gone, Downton Abbey kept moving forward. But another departure was just around the corner. This time, it wasn't a schemer or a troublemaker leaving. It was a wide-eyed kitchen maid with dreams of something bigger. Cara Theobald, Ivy Stewart. Every story in Downton Abbey wasn't about aristocrats or schemers. Some were about the quiet dreamers, the ones working in the kitchens who longed for a chance at something more. Ivy Stewart was one of those characters. Introduced in season 3, Ivy was a bright, lively kitchen maid who quickly became tangled in a complicated love triangle. She admired Jimmy Kent, the charming footman, while Alfred Nugent, another servant, harbored feelings for her. Ivy found herself caught between them, a situation that brought both humor and heartache to the series. By the end of season 4, Ivy was offered a chance to start a new life in America as a cook. And just like that, her story at Downton Abbey ended. For viewers, it was bittersweet. Her departure meant saying goodbye to a character who represented youth, energy, and optimism. But for Ivy, it was also a step toward independence and growth. For Cara Theobald, the actress who played her, Downton Abbey was more than just a role. It was her first professional job. She had never even gone through a proper audition process before, and suddenly she found herself on one of the biggest shows in the world. Looking back, she described the experience as nurturing, one that gave her confidence as a young actress. But after 2 seasons, she was ready to branch out and explore new opportunities. And explore she did. Since leaving the Abbey, Theobald has worked across television, film, and even video games. She's appeared in series like Absentia and movies like Around the Sun, but much of her success has come in voice acting, lending her talents to popular games and proving that her career, like Ivy's story, was just beginning. Ivy Stewart may have wanted more from life, and so did Cara Theobald. Both found it by stepping into new worlds beyond Downton Abbey, but not every departure was about ambition or new horizons. Some were written in the scripts from the very beginning, heartbreaking goodbyes that fans still remember today. Thomas Howe's William Mason. From the very start of Downton Abbey, William Mason stood out. A kind, gentle footman with a loyal heart, William represented everything good about the servants who lived below stairs. He harbored tender feelings for Daisy, the kitchen maid, though she didn't return his affection. Still, his sincerity and selflessness made him a favorite among viewers. When war broke out, William enlisted. His fate was sealed in one of the most emotional storylines of the series. During a battle, William threw himself into harm's way to save Matthew Crawley, sustaining fatal injuries. Before dying, he fulfilled his dream of marrying Daisy, even if she did not love him the same way. It was a tragic yet noble end for one of Downton's most genuine souls. Unlike many other exits, William's departure wasn't driven by the actor's personal choice. It was a natural part of the story, a reminder that the war would take lives and leave scars. Even in the world of Downton Abbey, Thomas Howes, the actor who brought William to life, admitted that saying goodbye was emotional. Phyllis Logan, who played Mrs. Hughes, was in tears when they first read the script. For the cast and crew, losing William meant losing a part of the Abbey's heart. After Downton, Howes returned to his roots in theater while continuing to appear on screen. He has been featured in projects like Gentleman Jack, Jack the Ripper, The Definitive Story, and Written in Blood. His career has been steady, proving that while William Mason's story ended, Thomas Howes' journey as an actor was far from over, and just when fans thought the heartbreak of lost characters couldn't be pushed any further, another storyline arrived that left viewers shocked and deeply divided. Amy Nuttall, Ethel Parks. Ethel Parks entered Downton Abbey in Season 2 as another young housemaid. But her story quickly spiraled into scandal and heartbreak. She was seduced by Major Charles Bryant, a soldier recovering at the Abbey, and soon found herself pregnant. The affair cost her everything. Ethel was dismissed, left to raise her child alone, and abandoned by the man who had fathered her son. When Charles was killed at the front, Ethel's struggles only deepened. She reached out to his wealthy parents for support, but they refused to acknowledge her unless she gave up her son entirely. Torn between love and survival, Ethel made the painful decision to let them raise the child while she stayed nearby. Ensuring she could at least remain close to him, Amy Nuttall, who played Ethel, later revealed that she thought her character's journey had ended after Season 2. But to her surprise, Julian Fellowes brought her back in Season 3 with an even more difficult storyline. When Isabel Crawley discovered Ethel had turned to sex work in order to survive, it gave the character a second chapter, one filled with pain, resilience, and sacrifice. For Nuttall, the return was unexpected but welcome. It gave her the chance to show a depth and range that resonated with audiences. And while Ethel's story ended in tragedy, it cemented her as one of the most memorable servants in the series. Amy Nuttall herself has continued to work steadily in television and theater, balancing a career that, much like Ethel's story, was never predictable but always compelling. By this point, 9 actors had left Downton Abbey, each for their own reasons. Some left to chase new horizons, some because the story demanded it, and others simply because they knew it was time. Yet each exit shaped the series in ways that fans will never forget. But there's still more to uncover, because behind every departure lies a deeper truth about the nature of the show, the challenges of long-term storytelling, and the risks actors take to protect their careers. Downton Abbey wasn't just a drama about upstairs and downstairs. It was a living, breathing world where characters felt real, where losses hurt, and where every departure left a mark. By the time the series moved past its 3rd and 4th seasons, fans had already endured multiple goodbyes. But the question kept rising: why did so many beloved actors leave? The answer was never the same twice. For Jessica Brown Findlay and Dan Stevens, it was about ambition. Both saw Downton Abbey as a launchpad, a chance to leap into broader opportunities beyond the Abbey walls. Their exits hurt the story, but paved the way for careers that have since flourished. For Siobhan Finneran and Amy Nuttall, it was the writers who decided their characters had reached their natural end. Sometimes the arc closes before an actor is ready, and the curtain falls whether they expect it or not. For Cara Theobald, it was a first step, a way to learn the craft before venturing into new challenges. For Thomas Howes, it was a scripted sacrifice, one that reflected the brutal reality of war. And for others, like Rose Leslie and Maria Doyle Kennedy, the decision was as much about timing as it was about creative growth. What united all of them was simple: Leaving Downton Abbey wasn't easy. The series had become a global phenomenon, watched by millions, adored by critics, and cherished by fans who felt personally invested in every character's fate. Walking away from that kind of success was never taken lightly, but here's what makes their stories so fascinating. In almost every case, leaving didn't diminish their careers. In fact, for many, it propelled them into even greater success. Dan Stevens became a Hollywood star. Jessica Brown Findlay proved her range in diverse projects. Siobhan Finneran took on acclaimed roles that showcased her power as a performer. Rose Leslie starred in another cultural juggernaut, Game of Thrones. Each departure opened new doors, and yet, the memory of Downton Abbey stayed with them, and with us. Every actor who left carried a piece of that world into their next role, shaping careers that might never have existed without those years at Highclere Castle. For fans, the departures were painful. Watching Matthew's car crash, Sybil's tragic death, or William's sacrifice was heartbreaking. But it was also part of what made Downton Abbey unforgettable. Life at the Abbey, just like life itself, was filled with joy, sorrow, and change. Characters came and went, but the story never stopped. That is the legacy of the 9 actors who left. They didn't just walk away from a show, they helped define it. Their exits forced the narrative to shift, pushed new characters into the spotlight, and kept the series alive with tension, surprise, and raw emotion. And that's the true brilliance of Downton Abbey. It was never just about one actor or one storyline. It was about a world that felt real. So real that even goodbyes left us grieving as though we had lost someone we knew. So, the next time you think back to Sybil, Matthew, O'Brien, or William, remember this. Their stories may have ended, but their impact still lingers. Their departures shaped the very heart of Downton Abbey, and their journeys beyond the Abbey walls remind us of a truth every fan understands. Goodbyes are never easy. But sometimes they are the very reason we hold on to the memories so tightly.